Hello everybody, this is the Newsroom team. That's Elvis President. I'm Ibn Hansen, and Kela Mahamati is on the sports desk as always. Very good morning to you. Now, of course, you can watch us live on YouTube right now around the world. Reports that people are enjoying the show in other parts of the world, while into the Middle East as well. So 24 hours a day, well, you can watch it back. Now, our focus today is on lifestyle diseases amongst South Africa's civil servants. So we have to ask a tough question, because this is not us that's saying it, it's the South African Medical Journal. It says South Africa's public servants are too overweight to get their jobs done. What is your view? We'd love to hear. I know people have many opinions on the South Africa's public servants are too overweight. That's according to the South African Medical Journal. Elvis, it is a problem.
Now, for those of you that don't know, civil servants include policemen,
yes, teachers, yes,
and everybody else that works for the state.
Yep. The scary thing is 87% of our teachers suffer from some form of lifestyle disease or the other. 87%.
No, I think it's a worldwide phenomenon, that, and it's actually quite prevalent in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. You need facts before you make a statement like that.
I actually read a report about that last night.
Oh, you did indeed.
Well, I tell you what, with Kentucky's hanging out of the boot of the vehicle of the police officer, what do you expect?
Kentucky's become currency on those streets, unfortunately. But Elvis, we've got a very serious poll that's running today after what we saw on our campuses around South Africa. People are well into it already, Are South African police too heavy-handed with student protests?
And this has got nothing to do with weight. This is heavy-handedness with regards to the protest students, right?
Kendall, what do you think? 127 votes, people say yes. 2/3 of them say yes, actually. You say yes, you saw somebody being shot. How many times?
No, let me say it live on air. I think what's important is what comes out after the medical reports. Were students shot in the body or in their legs? Are they using water cannons or not? And that will tell us that story.
Yeah, tough one to get your head around. Keep it coming. We've got more than 20 odd votes there. People think, yes, the police are a little bit heavy-handed, but it's also in the last 24 hours we've seen some horrific reporting or reports about alleged police behavior. Untested at this point, we have to make it very clear. But Elvis, there's a lot happening on the campuses. We're going to do a roundup. There's also some other stuff.
Yes, we're going to also look at the ICC. Now, as you know, South Africa made that announcement last year that we might just remove ourselves from the ICC. Yeah. We'll keep some tabs on that, but let's start off with your news headlines. South Africa sends a letter to the United Nations Secretary General expressing its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, has confirmed that it will investigate the shooting of the Wit student leader and other students. And the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, is expected to respond to the interdict application against publishing the state capture report today. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get anywhere else, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. The weekend is here, my lady.
The weekend is here, and leading up into this weekend, I'm not quite sure what Elvis is referring to. I'm not sure who he's talking about. It's not me, I can tell you that. Okay. We are definitely looking forward to a massive sporting weekend. And good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
The willingness of the participants to share their insight and energy in the discussions of the past 2 days were outstanding. We were asked to collaborate on day one, and we got that from the participants.
Now, with the end of the two-day rugby indaba in Cape Town, SARU drafts in Free State Cheetahs head coach Franco Smith and Golden Lions defence specialist JP Ferreira for the end-of-year tour next month.
So we've had one twilight session so far, which was very different. It's definitely something we still need to get used to. So tonight's training session is, I guess, a step in the right direction again in terms of adapting to those conditions and just take it as it comes, you know.
The Proteas are looking forward to their first pink ball day-night test with a practice match under the lights this weekend.
Fenerbahce Rooney. Lingard had to fetch it from behind him. Pogba! That's Unified! 3-0. Pogba and the double.
In the Europa League, Paul Pogba dazzles in Manchester United's 4-1 victory over Fenerbahce. All this and more we've got for you later on in the sports bulletin about 10:40. But for now, it is back to Elvis for the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. South Africa sent a letter to the United Nations Secretary General signaling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. That letter was written and signed by the International Relations and Corporations Minister Martin Okwane Mashabane. It says the withdrawal of the Rome Statute, which established the court, will take effect 1 year after the date of its receipt by the UN chief.
The letter seen first by SABC News says the Republic of South Africa has found its obligations with respect to the peaceful resolution of conflicts at times incompatible with the interpretation given by the International Criminal Court. It has attached documents to this cover letter, which we have not as yet seen, to explain their reasoning in this regard. The move by the government follows a clarion call from the ruling ANC last year that the country withdraw from the Rome Statute with claims the court had lost direction. The government has for more than a year now been engaged in court proceedings after being accused of disgraceful conduct for allowing ICC-indicted Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir to leave the country that was hosting an AU summit in Johannesburg at the time. After losing their appeal to the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein, the government, lodged a final petition to the Constitutional Court that has yet to rule on the matter. The UN spokesperson would not confirm receipt of the letter to the Secretary-General, saying rather that they did not have any language to share at this time. South Africa's withdrawal follows a similar letter from Burundi earlier this week, announcing their exit from the International Criminal Court. Sherwin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Remaining with that story, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is expected to hold a media briefing this morning regarding South Africa's decision to withdraw from the ICC. Our reporter Eldrin St. Piers there. Very good morning to you, Eldrin. What can we expect from this briefing?
Well, good morning, Elvis. We expect the Minister to give us more clarity in terms of the letters that have been sent to the United Nations, on what grounds exactly South Africa wants to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. And as Sherwin Briceby indicated in that piece, this is nothing new. We always knew that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when it will happen. The ANC at its NGC policy conference last year took the decision that it will start the process of withdrawing from the ICC, and this is definitely it. Something else that Jack Parrock, who was the person who actually broke the news on Twitter as well, one of our colleagues, something that he indicated is there seems to be some conflict around whether South Africa is allowed to take such a decision without it going to Parliament first. Remember that last year, just after the High Court ruling that Omar al-Bashir should have been arrested by government, and government didn't adhere to that order. Omar al-Bashir was not arrested. He left the country. The DA called for an urgent debate in Parliament where they discussed this matter, and they accused the government of protecting Omar al-Bashir. So certainly it seems that all indications are that this is a matter that should have been before Parliament, before final decision is being taken. So today we'll get some clarity around exactly how a government will go about the process of withdrawing from the ICC. And of course, what we know is that the ANC is in the majority, so all the numbers that they have, the numbers would be numbers that would allow the ANC to push government to withdraw from the ICC. The invitation from the Justice Ministry also indicates that they'll give us an update on the Omar al-Bashir case. Remember that earlier this year we had the Supreme Court of Appeal which dismissed the application by government to appeal the ruling by the High Court that it should have arrested Omar al-Bashir. Government has argued that based on the customary law that South Africa is a signatory to Omar al-Bashir being a sitting president has immunity. And when that AU summit took place in Sandton last year, it was under the jurisdiction of the African Union, and based on that, there was no way that they could have arrested Omar al-Bashir. And they made the example, for instance, when Robert Mugabe, whom the United States, for instance, has banned. He's banned from traveling in the United States, but the headquarters of the United Nations is in the United States, but he's allowed to travel to the United States only on official business when going to the United Nations. So what we'll hear probably today is the application that the government has now made to the Constitutional Court to appeal the Supreme Court of Appeal's ruling that they should have arrested Omar al-Bashir. And South Africa, according to the Constitution, has an obligation to act against crime against humanity.
What time is the briefing, Eldrin?
The briefing is expected to start at about 10 o'clock.
Thank you so much for that report. That's our reporter on the scene there. That was Eldrin St. Pierre. Yeah, we will go live to that briefing a little bit later, so you have to stay tuned. What will come out of it? We go now live to Brussels, where our correspondent Kevin Ozebek is standing by to give us an update with the letter that South Africa sent to the United Nations Secretary General, signaling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Kevin, a very good morning to you. Can you give us an update on the South African decision to start a process of withdrawing from the ICC? Well, it seems like Kevin is still having his coffee. We'll see if we can get in touch with him in a short while, just to see if he can hear us and we can get that connection. Kevin, can you hear me now? Oh, it seems like Kevin is not there yet. We'll see if we can get him. Meanwhile, our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, spoke to the ICC prosecutor, Fatu Bensouda, about this matter. Let's now take a look and listen. Let's see if we can have that report by Sophie Mokoena. We don't have that clip. We'll come back to that story a little later. Back home, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is to investigate the shooting with rubber bullets of student leader and former Witwatersrand University SRC President Shahira Kala and other students yesterday. The police have confirmed that she was hit 13 times in the back during a feast protest. WIT spokesperson Sharona Patel says a total of 10 students were hit by rubber bullets and that 4 of them, including Kala, are being treated in hospital.
Protesting students disrupted chemical engineering tests. Lectures halted and police respond. Senior Kala tries to intervene, but is shot several times with rubber bullets. A third day of clashes at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. The cars of 8 staff members stoned and classes disrupted again. 33 students and staff will spend another night behind bars after their bail hearing was postponed to Friday. Students at Cape Peninsula University of Technology held a general assembly. Both UCT and CPUT campuses remain closed. On Wednesday night, UWC suspended face-to-face lectures for the year. Students will be allowed to write their final exams in November or January.
Meanwhile, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate has confirmed that it's to investigate the shooting and the wounding of the student leader Shahira Kala and other students after police fired rubber bullets yesterday. Kala was shot multiple times in the back with rubber bullets during a Fees Must Fall protest on the university's Braamfontein campus. Police spokesman Sally de Beer called on police to exercise maximum restraint and operate within the law. De Beer says that any police officer found to have contravened the law will be dealt with accordingly. WIT spokesperson Sharona Patel says a total of 10 students were shot, of which 4 are being treated in hospital. As we covered our story earlier, we now go live to Brussels, where our correspondent Kevin Ozebek is standing by to give us an update with the letter from South Africa that was sent to the United Nations Secretary General, signaling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Kevin, a very good morning to you. Can you update us on the South African decision to start that process of withdrawing from the ICC?
Well, good morning, Elvis. And we're still waiting on the UN to confirm that it's received this letter from South Africa. But if, in fact, this is the case, South Africa then has 1 year to leave the ICC. So, in other words, the International Criminal Court still has jurisdiction over South Africa for 1 more year once it notifies the UN. Now, this is clearly troubling times for the ICC because just last week, President Pierre Nkurunziza of Burundi signed off on legislation that says Burundi also intends to leave the ICC. Now, at this point, the UN isn't confirming if it has received any official notification from Burundi as well, but it appears there are 2 African countries now very intent on leaving the International Criminal Court.
Now, has the ICC confirmed that it has received that letter from South Africa, and will the process now start and kick off from the date of receival?
At this point, no. And how this process works is the country, the ICC member country, notifies the UN, not the ICC, of its intent to leave. So it's really the UN right now that is in possession of this letter. So no response from the ICC just yet. Even though the Burundi president signed off on this legislation last week, we also haven't heard from the ICC commenting on that situation yet. And that's because the International Criminal Court in The Hague says it hasn't received official notification from the UN yet in terms of the Burundi situation. But regardless of the technicalities here, one has to question right now, what is the future of the ICC? Is this an international criminal court that will be able to withstand the test of time?
Mm-hmm. Will we see now perhaps the African countries en masse withdrawing from the ICC, you think?
Well, there certainly has been some of that sentiment among the African Union countries, and we've heard for a long time now the grievances that the continent has with the ICC. When you take a look at the cases that the ICC has handled, all of the convictions stem from cases on the continent. Now, they are starting to look in some other areas of the globe. They have some preliminary investigations opened up in Georgia. They're also potentially going to pursue the Philippines over what the president is doing there on his crackdown against drug lords. But really, the ICC's focus has been on Africa, and that really is a point of contention in Africa. Also, some people will say that really the ICC system isn't really fair when you have countries like the U.S., like China, not part of it. So how can you have an international court, some say, with just jurisdiction over certain areas and not over the entire globe? Because after all, when you're talking about war crimes and crimes against humanity and genocide, these are major issues. So some will argue that the ICC really was set up to fail if it's not going to have jurisdiction over every single country.
Any word from the ICC? Any shock in terms of the resignation, or shall we call it the withdrawal of South Africa from the body?
Yeah, I guess one way you could call this is a divorce. It's almost like a divorce proceeding. And so far, not yet. It's morning here in Europe. Everyone is just waking up. And like I said, we still haven't heard the ICC comment on President Nkurunziza's intent to leave the ICC. So no word from prosecutors at The Hague just yet.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Kevin Ossebeck live coming to us from The Hague, letting us know what's the latest there. We'll keep you abreast of those stories. Let's now take a look at what you have to say on Twitter. This one coming from Derek and Carter that says, no, security was a concern. They should have been there in the first place. This one coming from Rangwana says, it's in the police officer's nature to be cruel. Go look at the cases of brutality the SAPS is hiding at the stations. This is now with regards to the shooting of the students in the Fees Must Fall protest. Police are carrying out their mandated duties. Remember, it's the students who resorted to criminal actions. That one from Robert Langeveld. Anela Jimlongo says, very much so. If they were like this with criminals in our townships, we wouldn't have had crime, but police target the defenseless students. Now, those are some of your comments coming through. You can let them through on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. We'll read them as we continue, but right now, let's start our discussion on public servants and weight. It's a weighty matter. Let's go over to Eben.
Yeah, indeed it is. Very good morning to you if you've just joined us. That's a question we're asking you on the back of research done by the South African Medical Journal. It says South African public servants are too overweight. What are your thoughts on this? Send it in. We'd love to hear what you think. I know everyone has a view. Yes, the health status of our public servants has come under watch following a new study that shows that many of our police officers, nurses and teachers are overweight or obese, increasing their risk of lifestyle diseases such as heart attacks, cancer, strokes and even diabetes, all of which could lead to early retirement, low productivity and high absenteeism in the workplace. As I said earlier, ultimately this costs the country, well, around 6.8 or 7% of our overall GDP, and it's expected to rise in the next few years if this issue persists. Now, to speak to us about this weighty matter from our Pretoria studios is the Acting General Manager of the Public Servants Association, Mr. Ivan Fredericks. Very good morning to you, Ivan. Thank you for joining us on Newsroom.
Good morning, viewers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Ivan, the numbers from the South African Medical Journal says that health issues, obesity and being generally overweight and out of shape is a major concern for our public servants. How do you view this?
I really appreciate the concern that the article is bringing under the attention, but I think that it is maybe a bit irresponsible and one-sided to attribute the increase of these diseases amongst public servants to good living, as claimed by the article. I think I'm very happy that they mention a few professionals there, like the teachers, the nurses, police officials, correctional service officials. And it is generally a fact that the remuneration of these employees who render their services under the most stressful circumstances does not allow them to fall in the good life category. What we want to say is that these professionals, factors like long working hours, lack of recognition for valuable service, they render high stress levels and understaffing, etc., can contribute to stressful situations. I also want to mention that these, if I mention a few, the increasing unsafe conditions that our members are working, I actually want to thank them for still giving their best of their service under these circumstances. If you go to Gauteng, nursing residence is in poor conditions. Limpopo, unsafe, roadworthy transport, ambulances. In the Free State, we have unsafe buildings. Emergency service staff,
Ivan,
they are being exposed to, yes.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. It makes absolute sense that it's very difficult conditions for our public servants to operate in South Africa, almost unique conditions. But what are the interventions? It's no point us blaming each other and saying this and that and the other. What's the interventions? What are we going to do to try and make our public servants' lives a little bit better?
Thank you very much. I'm coming to that point, and I thank you for interrupting there. Let me come straight to the solutions that we can offer. I think it's important for the public service to become more professional in the sense of increasing better service conditions and so on. We must have a holistic way of living. In other words, because all these conditions that I've mentioned has an impact on the performances and taking away the passion of rendering an excellent service. So we want the public service to become professional in this way, that when you want to send prisoners to a prison, it must be professional. Yes, sir.
The way forward for us, you say we need to professionalize the public service, that sort of process. Are you hearing any positive developments with regards to these kinds of moves? Do you want any assistance in your guise as the GM of the Public Servants Association?
The Public Servants Association is going to place these items on our collective bargaining chambers, where we are going to make the following suggestions and proposals. Something like more wellness programs to be implemented at various departments. This might sound a bit ridiculous, but even getting gyms for people that are working overtime and maybe cannot and tired, can't go to the gym after work, etc. Educational programs on health. We're also thinking about the wellness programs that we want the departments to implement in their departments, etc. So we believe that if you focus on making the public servant healthy and looking after their well-being, they will be giving the best of the service to the public that they are serving.
Now, your members, when this report came out, and some of the numbers are shocking because it says 87% of teachers, for instance, suffer some form of chronic illness. 87%. That's almost 9 out of 10 teachers in South Africa suffer from some form of chronic illness. What was the reaction when these statistics came out?
As I say, we were very thankful for the concern they have. I'm not a doctor and I cannot speak for our members, but I do not think the survey has been done. And I think that if it is so, the truth, we have to put our hands in our own bosom and start working on it. But I also, as the union, we want the departments to start looking at their workers. We are there with them in partnership to see how we can improve the working conditions of our members and the public servants. It is not a good example if our public servants are unhealthy and sick, etc. We have nurses that are unhealthy, as you say, and we need to look at that as an organization and as the public service to ensure placing things in place, making sure that they are healthy and the working conditions are improved.
And what is that plan that you are going to put in place going forward, just to wrap it up?
Our plan, obviously, is that we need to speak to the public service itself. We will be placing this item on the agenda of our collective bargaining. We will go so far to have bilaterals. We will encourage our members to start looking at lifestyles, etc. But we will also urge the public service itself to take a look at what they are offering our members, where everybody wants the public service to give their 100% and more, and that we want to do. We encourage our members to be responsible, accountable, and to be healthy to render good service. But I think it's also time that the public service put their hand in their own bosom and see what are they doing that contributes to this unhealthy situation. I mean, we cannot expect nurses to work in hospitals where the nurses' residents are appalling, conditions are appalling. Ambulances being driven that is not roadworthy. Staff insecure, even coming to work in the morning, what's happening in the country now with fraud and corruption, etc. I think public servants are a bit uncomfortable because not everybody can be brushed under the same brush. They are there to render an honest service. And people that are in power are sitting one side while our members are suffering the consequences of what the public's opinions are in this regard.
Thank you, Ivan, but it will be very difficult to convince South Africa that public servants are victims of becoming fat. But I thank you for coming and explaining to us today the position of the PSA. That, of course, is the acting general manager of the Public Servants Association here in South Africa. His name was Ivan Fredericks, coming to us live from the capital here in Pretoria. Of course, the numbers are horrific with regards to lifestyle diseases. So we're asking you, South Africa's public servants are too overweight. This is according to the South African Medical Journal's report. It's not something we pulled out of the sky. What are your thoughts on this? Okay, let's move on now and take a look at what's happening on the social media pages right now. Of course, there was a lot of action on the hashtag Fees March at the hashtag Union Buildings yesterday. Let's recap on that to some of the images. Here you see some of the images, emotionally charged scenes here, crowds gathering. It seems peaceful enough. Then the police presence picked up, and even school children joined the march a little bit later. Then there was this image circulating, comparing 2016 students to that of 1976. Straight out of Africa, says the only thing that's changed is the quality of the images. Of course, meanwhile, disruptions at the hashtag Wits again in the news yesterday. And of course, student leader Shaira Kalla was shot by police with rubber bullets multiple times. There is an investigation underway right now, and we'll keep you posted on that story. Now, you saw our top story. South Africa has formally started the process of withdrawing from the International Criminal Court, hashtag ICC, if you want to have a look. The country's diplomats made the decision after accusing the ICC of bias against African countries. Now, this tweet that we're looking at right now comes from Max Molomo, who says, this ICC thing, does it mean that mass murderers, war criminals, and such others from the dredges of global society can come camp here by us? I don't think so. South Africa's top comedian and US host of The Daily Show, yes, our very own Trevor Noah, has pulled out as the host of the MTV African Music Awards due to health reasons. Much to the disappointment of his loyal fans, he sent his apology and reasoning out on his Twitter account. Then, moving to international news, there's still a major tussle going on between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Or the nasty woman versus the puppet of Russia. These are the names that they call each other. The memes are streaming in, though. This quote by Donald Trump: we have some bad hombres here and we need to get them out. Talking about Mexicans in America. It's ended up as a meme poking fun of Donald for calling Hillary a nasty woman. The nasty woman and the bad hombre. Of course, there you see the Brokeback Mountain meme with him sitting on the back of the horse with Vladimir Putin. I'm sure that one would have gone down like a lead balloon in Russia today. Don't forget, the presidential vote is on the 8th of next month. That's November. The world is waiting. We can't wait to see what will happen, what the outcome will be. Surely everyone's saying Donald Trump can't be the next leader of the free world. We hope not, some others would say. Anyhow, our picture of the day. Now, this one comes from Alexander Stein, and it's captioned, "This is my city today. Hail, storm, Bloemfontein, summer weird weather." Let's take a look at it. Yes, it's not Photoshop, guys. This is for real. The streets of Bloemfontein white with ice and sleet and snow. Some people say, I don't know if it's snow, it's more hail. Hailstorms, Elvis comes from that part of the world, actually a little bit further out, Kimberley side. He says that's just another normal hailstorm there as you head into the summer, isn't it so?
Once every 100 years or so.
Once every 100 years, he says. Anyhow, this is our comment of the day. Let's take a read at our comment of the day. This one from Sihle Makanya, and it talks about the Fees March is a much better approach as opposed to the burning of institutions. I hope we get a positive outcome that will equally benefit all. Sobriety, sober view, Sihle, fantastic. Keep it coming, of course. We'll move on with the show as always, but you can always go back to our points. We've got quite a few points, actually. Here's what's happening in the courts today. Now, we'll start in Limpopo province, where the case of a truck driver arrested for the alleged possession of gold and diamonds at the Beitbridge border post that's expected to resume in the Messina Magistrates Court today. Now, Tsiseko Mboyi from the DRC was allegedly found in possession of gold and diamonds worth R1 million just last month. Then, the Northwest High Court is expected to pass judgment on the matter relating to the murder of 7 relatives who died when their shack was set alight in the town of Koster a little bit earlier this year. And a group of 117 SANDF soldiers are expected to ask a court to grant them permission to bring a class action against the Minister of Defense and military veterans, Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula. The last group of almost 600 soldiers returned to work after being placed on special leave after clashes with police during a march to the Union buildings in 2009. Now, the group wants to claim damages for defamation and loss of benefits while on special leave. Now, it's an interesting story. We'll keep you updated how these cases develop. We're going to take a short break. Don't forget our poll. We've got a poll up The poll deals with the heavy-handed nature of the police. Do you think the police are a little bit heavy-handed in their approach with students? Of course, the students will all say so. After the break, I'll show you what the poll numbers are saying.
Moved to ease tensions created by the heated public spat between National Treasury and Eskom.
Eskom denied allegations of impropriety regarding the matter. National Treasury issued a statement accusing Eskom of lying.
The fracas over hairstyles at a Pretoria school has drawn sharp focus on underlying racism and alleged abuse in some schools.
We want relevant answers from the MEC. You must fire the principal.
Here too, similar sentiments of underlying racism.
It just made me feel like I was not worthy enough of an education because of the type of hairstyle that I had. Because yesterday the statement was, writing an exam is a privilege.
Good living, long working hours and expanding waistlines are harming governance as public servants' chronic diseases threaten their lives and medical aid sustainability. It is a weighty matter, isn't it? This also adds more woes to the South African economy as low productivity and high absenteeism cost the country over 6% of our gross domestic product, GDP. In Cape Town alone, 87% of teachers have chronic illnesses. Now, to talk to us about the health of public servants, we are now joined by Professor Linda Skull from the University of Limpopo. Professor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, Professor, how serious is this issue of public servants' health in the country?
It is a very big problem, especially when we also experience the similar obesity problem amongst healthcare workers. Now, those are the people who are supposed to be champions of healthy living, but they are the very same people who are contributing to this obesity problem.
According to the South African Medical Journal, 87% of teachers in Cape Town alone have chronic diseases and illnesses. What do you make of that statistic, Professor?
It's alarming. It's alarming very much because with that, we have to just appreciate the fact that at the end of the day, these people are going to die early or retire very early before their actual retirement date, meaning that we're going to suffer a lot in terms of workforce at the end of the day. Yes.
Now, if you look at the situation as it currently stands, a number of people working for the state and they are unhealthy. What can be done from the state's perspective in order to improve the situations of public service workers?
What I've realized is that the environment where these where these people work is not conducive enough for them to actually engage in healthy living. So I would actually encourage the government or the public sector to create an enabling environment so that people can be able to engage in physical activity and also healthy eating.
So that enabling environment that you're talking about, are you then suggesting that the government should have canteens in the workplace and that they should have gyms at the workplace? Or what do you suggest?
Structurally, maybe it may not be possible in other institutions, but we can start, for example, with the offices, where we can actually suggest that you switch off the lift and everybody is encouraged to walk up the stairs. maybe up to 3rd floor. From 3rd floor, a person can take a lift to 20th floor, whatever floor. But as it is now, a person moves from the parking lot straight into the lift and straight into the office, and they sit down in their offices. And that is a sedentary behavior that is actually contributing to obesity.
But now that will now impede on the rights of those disabled that can't walk up the stairs.
It's all debatable because people do want to change their lives, you know. So if you say it's a rights, human rights, I mean, everybody has a right to make informed decisions. But right now, the environment permits them to adopt an unhealthy lifestyle, and that is something that we can encourage people or discourage people from conducting, or make the environment to be conducive for those who want to actually engage in that drive.
And what about eating habits? Because that contributes a lot to these particular illnesses that we see.
Yes, the eating habits also do contribute, actually significantly so. But what I've realized is that people eat a lot and then they do not participate in physical activity. The mere fact that you wake up and walk to your bathroom is not good enough for you to actually say you are physically active. So whatever you put in, energy out. So the work environment where we spend more than 8 hours in needs to be conducive enough for us to engage in physical activity, to shed that energy that we consume in terms of eating.
So, Professor, if you now have to make a recommendation to the department, and finally, your advice in 30 seconds.
My advice would be that the environment needs to be improved. If need be, all the departments should be having a gymnasium for people who choose to adopt such a lifestyle of exercising. Then they can exercise within the work environment. And also the policy should be such that people should be allowed time to go and actually exercise. If you look at the hospitals, the theme of the hospital is to treat, treat, treat. But you could change that and say, now let us look at the health of the healthcare workers and take them to and build a gym where they can actually go and exercise.
Or they could just run around the hospital.
And give them time to do so.
Or they could just run around the hospital and walk up the stairs.
They can do that as well, but it needs to be coordinated. Remember, it's not just about walking. It's how fast you walk and how much distance you cover when you are walking. That will actually depart from your normal walking.
Yes. Professor, thank you so much for your time and joining us from our Limpopo studios over there. As you can see, that was Professor Linda Skull from the University of Limpopo talking to us about the health of public servants. It is a weighty matter indeed, Eben, as we cross over to Eben to give you some more of your comments coming through.
Yeah, they say it's a very simple thing. Eat less, do more. Of course, I'm having great difficulty with the eat less bit myself. So I feel the pain of the public servants. I do feel the pain. Eat less, do more. Anyhow, we've got a poll on a very weighty matter, pardon the pun, very important matter here. We saw what happened on campuses yesterday. Student leaders being shot with rubber bullets, the like, some of them in hospital today. Are South African police too heavy-handed with student protests? That's what we've asked you. Right now we've got 179 votes. Thank you. Keep the votes coming, by the way. Love your work. 63% say yes. 64% say yes. Police are a little bit too heavy-handed. 27% say no. 9% are not interested. That's very interesting to see. Out of 180 votes, about 18 of them are not interested, or 16 of them are not interested. So keep voting on there. We'd like to see where it ends up on. Also, we've got some comments that you guys have sent directed at this specific question. This one from Ali. He says, Newsroom, these thugs are not students. Students enter to learn and leave to serve. Study and struggle, not demand, pillage and intimidate. That one from Ali Kiai, very, very strong words. Derek Nkata says, Newsroom, no. Security was a concern. They should not have been there in the first place. Very, very tough words from our viewers today. Rangwane Marumo says, Newsroom, It's in police officers' nature to be cruel. Go look at the cases of brutality the SABC is hiding at stations. Okay, that's an accusation. Robert Langeveld says today, Newsroom, police are carrying out their mandated duties. Remember, it's the students who are resorted to criminal actions. That's the flip side of it. And this one from Anela Jimlongo says, Newsroom, very much. If they were like this with criminals in our townships, we wouldn't have crime. But police target defenseless students. There we go. That's our poll. So about 64% of about 180 people voting on our poll right now, they think that, well, the police are a little bit heavy-handed. We'd like to hear what you think on that. And this question, South African public service are too overweight, too fat, suffer too many lifestyle diseases, becoming a burden on the public purse. What are your thoughts? Now, the thoughts of the public service general manager, the association's general manager, he says it's because of the tough working conditions and high stress levels that the people are, well, suffering from lifestyle diseases. What do you think about that? I'd love to hear what you think to our question of the day. Overweight, what are your thoughts? Anyhow, let's go to our Facebook page now. Now, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has told an informal session of the General Assembly that the Security Council has failed to discharge its responsibilities to uphold peace and security in Syria. Then, we see European Union leaders agreed yesterday to step up their efforts to curb illegal migration from African countries with the aim of replicating their success in halting inflows from Turkey over the past year. Finally, there's been an increase in the number of children who commit suicide as a result of being bullied at school. This emerged at Thursday's gathering of school teachers and principals here at Rosebank in Johannesburg, where bullying was under the spotlight. That's our Facebook page. All of that and more. You can also go to sabc.co.za/news and you can go onto the website. Now, let's take a quick whirl around the front pages in the world, some of them at least. The USA Today reports that Donald Trump's refusal to say he'll accept the result of an election he claims is rigged comes 16 years after a presidential election crisis whose conclusion upheld something Trump now questions: the integrity of American democracy. Then in China, the South China Morning Post says President Xi Jinping told his Philippines counterpart Rodrigo Duterte that the two countries could put aside disputes and improve ties. Finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that U.S. support for United Nations Security Council resolution to replace 242 would conflict with commitments given to Israel by Washington going back to 1973. This according to Foreign Minister Director General Dor Gold. That's what he told the newspaper yesterday.
Important economic indices released this week included the latest consumer inflation figure, which quickened to 6.1% in September from 5.9% in August. But it was marginally lower than market expectations. Further, annual growth in retail sales slowed to 0.2% in August, which was rather lower than the market forecast. Then, with the role of the credit rating agencies in the spotlight, the recent BRICS meeting said that it wanted to create a separate credit rating agency for emerging markets. And finally, the eagerly awaited medium-term budget policy statement, or the mini-budget, will be presented by the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan to Parliament next Wednesday. So in order to discuss this and other factors relating to the economy, we're joined by economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance, the SBG, in our weekly slot of the economy. Professor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Let's start off with the numbers. Overall inflation remained round about 6.1, jumped to 6.1. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think what we can say about inflation is it does appear to have stabilized round about 6%. This is what the Reserve Bank and some others are expecting. It's still under pressure, but it's manageable. The important factors here, I think, which pose a threat to that inflation rate, or will keep it where it is firstly, of course, the food prices, which have in fact gone up by about 10%. But we know what the reasons for that. It's the drought. Unfortunately, we're now seeing some signs of rain. Hopefully, the costs of the drought will begin to fall over time, and in due course, we can perhaps see a lower increase in food prices. The other big threat to the rate of inflation is, of course, the volatile rand. And we've had some bad experiences as well as good experiences with the rand in the last few months. I think what we're going to see in the next few months is some throughput from the weaker rand of the recent past. But in particular, we must expect that with the higher oil price and the lower rand, we are going to be paying a little more for our fuel in the next few months. So I think those factors are what will ensure that our inflation rate will remain more or less at the top of the inflation target range for the time being, but it appears to be manageable at the moment. Unacceptably high, but yes, it's manageable.
What about the retail sales figures? Are they telling us anything?
Well, I think, Elvis, we must remember that we've discussed here before that in fact it's consumer spending that constitutes nearly 60% of our economy. So how retail sales behave is really quite important. There's nothing new here in the sense that this reflects what we've discussed before. It's a weak economy, we have a low growth rate, and we are trying to get out of it. So this is a reflection of that. We should also bear in mind, when we talk a little later about the mini budget, that of course it's through the retail sales that the VAT revenues are influenced.
Yes.
So we don't want consumer spending to be too low, even from the point of view of the fiscus.
Turning to BRICS, now they've decided to start their own credit rating agency. Is that such a bad thing? And a pro-poor or pro-developmental approach, isn't that what we actually need?
Well, I think, Elvis, we need to know a little more about it, but let's just step back and say, what is the role of a credit rating agency? Now, we know that in a nutshell, they look at the credit risks of a country and of corporates, and they're invited to do so. You have to pay them to do it. And of course, like a doctor, you still have to pay the doctor even if he gives you bad news. Now, I think the issue here is that there are three major players, S&P, Moody's, and Fitch. They control roughly 90% of the market as far as this is concerned. If there's space for another competitor, good and well, but we must do it for the right reasons. It's very important here. I mean, even after Brexit, immediately Britain was downgraded, admittedly from A+ to A, but they act immediately. So in that sense, I don't see any discrimination. But fair enough, let's say if you can create a credit rating agency for emerging markets, which is independent and credible, then let's go for it. But it's a very expensive exercise, and we must be strategically very aware of what we're doing. The last thing you want is that there's any doubt over the credibility of what you're doing. So I think let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what the details are. But it's an important issue because credit rating agencies are important when you want to assess the economic performance of a country, and you want these indices and these evaluations to be above board. Absolutely, there must be no hidden agenda behind them, no matter who they are.
Yes. Now, with the mini-budget being tabled in Parliament next week, what are you expecting? Will the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, be able to balance the book, so to speak, and present a fairly balanced situation for the country, bearing in mind that we have a political uncertainty in the country and weak economic data coming out?
Elvis, I think we must remember this is a mini-budget in the sense that it's not the main budget. It's quite an important statement because it's a rolling plan of government spending over a 3-year period. So each year it gets updated. So the other shoe will drop in the main budget. This is concentrating mainly on giving an economic message as the Treasury sees it, and then saying, what can we do about government spending over the next 2 or 3 years? Now, this is a very important issue, of course. And as the Minister has said, look, I think there are going to be some tough choices. In other words, he's now faced with a position in our public finance where you can no longer say, I will do this and that. It's now this or that. So he has to consolidate his public finances. He's got the credit rating agencies breathing down his neck saying, we want you to show that you will stick to the percentages of sound finance. I think there's a good chance he can, because a lot of homework has been done. I think on the government spending side, there's a new discipline there that's being applied. Certain government loans recently have been quite successful. The tax revenues, we're not quite sure how well they're holding up under the weak growth rate. So I think he will be able, I'm hoping certainly, and I have confidence, that our public finances are in sufficiently good hands, that he will be able to muster a pass with these numbers.
Yes.
There are other challenges which lie outside the mini-budget, but that's not his immediate concern. But the important issue is that this will be one of the key boxes that the credit rating agencies will tick, is what the numbers look like next week.
And what are some of those risks that can come out of the mini-budget? We have the fees protest carrying on right now. Do you expect perhaps a pronouncement on the fee situation?
Well, I think there are a number of issues that he will have to consolidate, whether it's public sector wages, whether it's nuclear power, whether it's the fees must fall issue. I think it's very important because, as the Cabinet said yesterday, if we don't settle this fees must fall, there's going to be economic damage soon. So quite clearly the message he might put through next week will be quite important. But he's still got to bring this all under the umbrella of acceptable numbers. In other words, our debt ratios and so forth must live up to the promises, as far as they can, that were made in the February budget of this year. And then, of course, we'll have to see what happens next February when he looks at the tax side. So, I mean, that'll be a whole separate discussion.
A final thought, Professor?
Well, I think the important thought now on the eve of the mini-budget is that to get the mini-budget right is a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition for ensuring that we don't get an investment downgrade. That's tremendously important because there are other agendas over which the minister does not necessarily have control. There are political agendas and so forth. And this is where we are also waiting for some key good decisions and good choices to be made to ensure that political uncertainty doesn't exact too high a price from our economy.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thank you.
Now, that was economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance, the SBG, in our weekly slot of the economy. Next week, we'll put the spotlight onto the mini-budget.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Live from Johannesburg, that's the man himself, Henry Philemon. He's in studio with us today. Man of Definition, that's the album. Wonderful stuff. Nice, happy note to start the weekend, really.
Good Friday. It's a Good Friday.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love the jazz. I love it.
Yeah, I love the jazz. Kind of gives your age group away there, Kendall. Anyhow, our focus today, of course, we're dealing with a whole host of stuff. First one, of course, we put a poll up and we ask you about the poll. Police, are they being a little bit heavy-handed with students? Now, we have to look at it in context, Kendall, with what happened on our campuses yesterday.
Absolutely. Do have to look at it in context. I'll tell you what, our viewers reckon 63% say yes, they are. And Renee, not so many saying no.
It seems that a lot of people are agreeing with us today, 63% there.
It's easy to be influenced by the current photographs, the pictures of the injuries of students and so forth. But all of these stories have a whole lot of weeks and months of context behind them, so one should never look at it without context. But right now, about 2/3 of people are saying, oh, the police are a little bit too heavy-handed, and we've almost got 200 votes up. So there's still about a day left for you to put it up.
Tell you what,
put it up.
I did see that clip of that SRC leader being shot as she walked away. It did look a little heavy-handed to me.
Yeah, it did look a little bit heavy-handed to you. But let's have a look at your tweets with regards to that question. You know, these are Dezabel, the motivator, says, I must say I'm really disappointed, Newsroom, with how the police is dealing with the march because students are unarmed. And there you see a picture, and that picture is worth 1,000 words, isn't it?
Very powerful image there.
Yeah, like cowering in fear, two policemen heavily armed, standing guard over them, looking like they're about to run.
Khalisto says to us there, he says, Newsroom, what do you call this? Well, on that picture alone, you have to say that's quite brutal. They too hush is another picture sent in with one student's pants being pulled off almost by police in this instance. These are some of the pictures. That's our poll question. Our poll question, 2/3 of people say police are a little bit heavy-handed, but let's go to our question of the day. Of course, well, our public servants report from the South African Medical Journal says South Africa's public servants are too overweight to do their jobs. What are your views? Let's have a look at some of those thoughts that have been coming in thus far this morning. Yes, Andres says, Newsroom?
Yeah, Newsroom. These are people who are always behind their steering wheels and computers every day, no exercise whatsoever, hence overweight.
Thank you, Andres.
And Debu Johnson says, before 1994, the police force was fit. So what's happened in the USA police force? Maybe it's a personal issue of diet, huh?
It's not only the police, though, Devoe, we have to say to you, it's all the public servants in South Africa as well. He says, Newsroom, not even encouraged to exercise. He says 87% of our teachers are suffering chronic diseases. There's another one. Devoe comes back. He says, this is no-brainer. Leave KFC, McDonald's, won't be perfect.
Fast food there. Of course, we know this is not healthy for us.
Saturated fat, yeah, that's the enemy of mankind in the 21st century. But there's a lot of news still happening. Let's go to Rene on the news desk to put us in the picture.
South Africa sends a letter to the United Nations Secretary General expressing its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. And the Independent Police Investigative Directorate has confirmed that it will investigate the shooting of Wits student leader and other students. And Public Protector Busisiwe Mqwebane is expected to respond to the interdict application against publishing the state capture report today. Before we get to that news, let's find out from Kendall what's coming up in the sports over the weekend. Good morning, Kendall.
Good morning, Rene. Evan and I are going to be chatting a little later on about quite a lot. The rugby indaba was had yesterday. It's got a lot happening on the weekend as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sitting down with yourself and Jody. I haven't been an expert on sport in a while, so look forward to that one.
Nah, I've got testers for you. Don't worry. Don't worry. Good morning to you. This is what we have for you in the sports today.
The willingness of the participants to share their insight and energy in the discussions of the past 2 days were outstanding. We were asked to collaborate on day one, and we got that from the participants.
Now, with the end of the two-day rugby indaba in Cape Town, Saru drafts in Free State Cheetahs head coach Franco Smith and Golden Lions defence specialist JP Pereira for the end-of-year tour next month.
So we've had one twilight session so far, which was very different. It's definitely something we still need to get used to. So tonight's day session is, I guess, a step in the right direction again in terms of adapting to those conditions. And just take it as it comes, you know.
The Proteas are looking forward to their first pink ball day-night test with a practice match under the lights this weekend.
Fenerbahce Rooney. Lingard had to fetch it from behind him. Pogba! That's beautifully done! 3-0. Pogba and the double.
In the Europa League, Paul Pogba dazzles in Manchester United's 4-1 victory over Fenerbahce. All this and more we've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. Be sure to stick around for about 10:40 or so. But for now, it is back to Renee, who's got the news.
Thank you very much, Kendall. Now, South Africa has sent a letter to the United Nations Secretary General signalling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The letter was written and signed by the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Maite Nkoana Mashibane. It says the withdrawal from the Rome Statute, which established the court, will take effect 1 year after the date of its receipt by the UN chief.
The letter seen first by SABC News says the Republic of South Africa has found its obligations with respect to the peaceful resolution of conflicts, at times incompatible with the interpretation given by the International Criminal Court. It has attached documents to this cover letter, which we have not as yet seen, to explain their reasoning in this regard. The move by the government follows a clarion call from the ruling ANC last year that the country withdraw from the Rome Statute with claims the court had lost direction. The government has for more than a year now been engaged in court proceedings after being accused of disgraceful conduct for allowing ICC-indicted Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir to leave the country that was hosting an AU summit in Johannesburg at the time. After losing their appeal to the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein, the government, lodged a final petition to the Constitutional Court that has yet to rule on the matter. The UN spokesperson would not confirm receipt of the letter to the Secretary-General, saying rather that they did not have any language to share at this time. South Africa's withdrawal follows a similar letter from Burundi earlier this week, announcing their exit from the International Criminal Court. Sherwin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Now, a press conference on that matter is expected to begin shortly. We will be bringing you that event live. Now, still on the matter of South Africa signalling a withdrawal from the International Court, Our foreign editor Sophie Mokoena spoke to the ICC prosecutor Fataubi Bensouda about this matter. Let's take a look at that.
The case is, as you know, still pending arrest warrants. We've investigated into this case since the referral was made by the UN Security Council to the ICC. We have brought several cases. We've requested for several arrest warrants, not only Mr. al-Bashir, but also against Minister Hussein and Hassan. And also we have the case against alleged rebels against the government, Abu Garda, Banda, and Jerbo. So these are several cases, and this just manifests the work that the court has been doing with respect to the situation in Darfur. So the arrest warrants are pending, but as you have seen, the court still has difficulty in ensuring that Mr. al-Bashir and others are arrested and brought to the court. And we keep on asking the states parties whose responsibility it is to arrest, that they arrest Mr. Bashir and hand him over to the court. Because the court was created, as I said at the very beginning, the court was created for it to do its judicial work, its legal work. But the states have the mandate and responsibility, as I said, to execute the warrants, to cooperate with the court, to assist the court in ensuring that the process takes place. And we have been requesting from all states parties that this obligation that they have should be respected, and that Mr. al-Bashir and others who are wanted by the ICC should be arrested and brought to the ICC. So this is where we are, but you know everything that is happening, the fact that states are not willing, especially state parties, are not willing to, do not have the political will to arrest and surrender Mr. al-Bashir to the court.
He visited South Africa. Talk about state parties who are not willing, you know, to take political responsibility, to hand him over. The South African case, how far are you? As you are visiting South Africa, were you able to speak to the South African government about that outstanding pending matter? The issue with the Mr. al-Bashir and what happened in South Africa and the failure to arrest is a matter that is before the courts now. It is both before the domestic courts in South Africa, but also it is pending before the ICC. And I cannot say much about it. It's a matter that is still pending, and we will wait for what the judges will decide. I want to say that I'm a prosecutor, and my role is to investigate and prosecute these crimes, and this is what I'm trying to do. The decision to join the ICC or to leave the ICC is a decision by states themselves. It's a sovereign decision that states voluntarily take to join the ICC or to leave the ICC. With respect to this so-called movement that you're saying about withdrawing from the ICC, I prefer to talk about it not as the prosecutor, but as an African. I'm an African. I am a candidate that the African Union themselves endorsed as Africa's sole candidate to sit as prosecutor for the ICC. And I have said from the very beginning that I will exercise this role with full independence and impartiality. And this is what I have been trying to do. If, as Do you feel betrayed by the group?
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, it's a matter of interest. I think all this is really politics and interest that is at play. And people have their interest, and they try to do what they can to ensure that their interests are realized. But as I said, as an African, it would really be a regression on the continent, a regression, a very bad regression for us to decide to choose impunity over justice.
Meanwhile, earlier we spoke to our correspondent in Brussels, Kevin Osbeck, to give us an update on the letter sent by South Africa to the United Nations Secretary General, signaling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court.
We're still waiting on the UN to confirm that it has received this letter from South Africa, but if in fact this is the case, South Africa then has 1 year to leave the ICC. So in other words, the International Criminal Court still has jurisdiction over South Africa for 1 more year once it notifies the UN. Now, this is clearly troubling times for the ICC because just last week, President Pierre Nkurunziza of Burundi signed off on legislation that says Burundi also intends to leave the ICC. Now, at this point, the UN isn't confirming if it has received any official notification from Burundi as well, but it appears there are 2 African countries now very intent on leaving the International Criminal Court.
Now, has the ICC confirmed that it has received that letter from South Africa, and will the process now start and kick off from the date of receival?
At this point, no. And how this process works is the country, the ICC member country, notifies the UN, not the ICC, of its intent to leave. So it's really the UN right now that is in possession of this letter. So no response from the ICC just yet. Even though the Burundi president signed off on this legislation last week, we also haven't heard from the ICC commenting on that situation yet. And that's because the International Criminal Court in The Hague says it hasn't received official notification from the UN yet in terms of the Burundi situation. But regardless of the technicalities here, one has to question right now, what is the future of the ICC? Is this an international criminal court that will be able to withstand the test of time?
Let's cross live to Pretoria, where the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is currently briefing the media regarding South Africa's decision to withdraw from the ICC. Let's go there live.
Members of the media, fellow South Africans, good morning, and morning to fellow colleagues on the panel. We have called this press conference to announce the decision taken by Cabinet on Wednesday, the 19th of October 2016, in relation to the country's membership to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court and the pending appeal regarding Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir. The Republic of South Africa is a founder member of the African Union and plays an important role in resolving conflicts on the African continent and in encouraging the peaceful resolution of conflicts wherever they occur anywhere else in the world. In exercising its international relations with foreign countries, particularly with countries in which serious conflicts occur or have occurred, South Africa is hindered by the implementation of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court Act, number 2, and that's Act number 27 of 2002. This Act and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court compel South Africa to arrest persons who may enjoy diplomatic immunity under customary international law, but who are wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and to surrender such persons to the International Criminal Court. South Africa has to do so even under circumstances where we are actively involved in promoting peace, stability, and dialogue in those countries. We wish to give effect to the rule of customary international law, which recognizes the diplomatic immunity of heads of state and others in order to effectively promote dialogue and the peaceful resolution of conflicts wherever they may occur, particularly on the African continent. South Africa enacted the Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges Act, Act number 37 of 2001, which provides for the immunities and privileges of diplomatic missions and the consular posts and other members of heads of states, special envoys, and certain representatives of the United Nations and its specialized agencies and other international organizations and certain other persons. However, the implementation of the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court Act 2002 is in conflict and inconsistent with the provisions of the Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges Act 2001. In order to ensure that South Africa's continued ability to conduct active diplomatic relations, a bill proposing the repeal of the implementation of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court Act 2002 will soon be tabled in Parliament. We have already in writing informed the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces of this executive decision. In the matter of the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Development versus the South African Litigation Center 867/15, 2016, ZASCA 17, 15 March 2016, the Supreme Court of Appeal confirmed that in terms of customary international law, heads of state enjoy immunity against arrest. However, the Supreme Court of Appeal found that in enacting the implementation of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court Act 2002, South Africa had expressly waived the immunity of such heads of state, and that South Africa was thus obliged to arrest persons wanted for crimes committed against humanity. In essence, the Supreme Court of Appeal identified the problem which needs to be addressed. The effect of withdrawal from the Rome Statute, as well as the repeal of the Implementation Act, thus completes the removal of all legal impediments inhibiting South Africa's ability to honor its obligations relating to the granting of diplomatic immunity under international law as provided for under our domestic legislation. This therefore removes the necessity, at least insofar as this aspect is concerned, of continuing with the appeal. Written notice to withdraw from the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court has been submitted to the Secretary General of the United Nations in accordance with Article 127(1) of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. The withdrawal will take effect 1 year after the Secretary General has received the notification. South Africa will remain obligated under the Rome Statute for the duration of the 12-month notice period. An application for leave to appeal the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal set down for hearing at the Constitutional Court on 22 November 2016 will now be withdrawn. This is so especially as the Supreme Court of Appeal has removed the uncertainty around customary international law in relation to diplomatic immunity insofar as it affects heads of states and others who may be wanted for serious violations of human rights and other serious crimes, but who enjoy diplomatic immunity under international customary law. South Africa remains committed to the fight against impunity and to hold those who have committed crimes against humanity and other serious crimes accountable. Our unwavering commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights throughout Africa and elsewhere in the world is further demonstrated by our continued participation in various international and continental human rights instruments. For this reason, South Africa will work closely with the African Union and the other countries in Africa to strengthen continental bodies such as the African Court on Human and People's Rights, created to deal with such crimes, and to prosecute the perpetrators, whilst at the same time continuing to participate and honor its commitments under international human rights instruments. South Africa will continue to actively promote dialogue and the peaceful resolution of conflicts on the African continent and elsewhere. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the statement. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have 2 rounds here and then in Cape Town. The rules of engagement are very simple. You introduce yourself and the media house that you are representing and ask your question. We'll take 5 hands from now. Adrian, I've noted you. Sir, in front of you, and then Valdi. And you, Joe. Okay, Nicholas, 5. Okay, Adrian, over to you.
Good morning, Aldrin Simpier from SABC TV News. Minister, in light of the Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that has now been taken, or the ruling that has been handed out, and all of a sudden now you have this decision that has been taken by Cabinet, that means that the ruling by the SCA still stands, and is government then willing to admit that government was wrong in not implementing the court order as set down by the High Court, that it should have arrested Omar al-Bashir last year? And in this decision taken by Cabinet, is it not in a way subverting the rule of law, that a decision has been taken by the court and now government feels that it doesn't want to go all the way to the Constitutional Court when it actually wanted the Constitutional Court to bring some sort of clarity with regards to the customary international law?
Thank you, Adrian. Sir.
Hi, Simon Allison from the Daily Maverick. The argument being made here is that diplomatic immunity under international customary law and the ICC obligations are incompatible with each other, and therefore government had to choose either one or the other. Why did government choose diplomatic immunity instead of its ICC obligations? What was the rationale there? And doesn't that lend protection to human rights abusers rather than human rights victims?
Thanks, Valdi.
My question is a follow-up to Simon's. It's just, what recourse will there be now for victims of genocide and crimes against humanity? I know the AU has a mechanism for that, but it prevents sitting heads of state from being prosecuted. And in Africa's case, you know that that can be a lifelong term. And then I just wanted to know, why should South Africa renege on its international relations and damage its international standing to protect Sudanese President al-Bashir?
Thank you. And then Joe?
Good day, everyone. My name is Johnny Sai. I'm with African News Agency. Just for the Minister, please. There are legal experts saying already that this decision will not stand constitutional master. If it goes to the Constitutional Court, it will not stand before the courts. What's your view on that fight? And are you prepared to take this fight up to the Concord when the analyst or the stakeholder civil society takes you to the courts? Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Nicholas?
Good morning, Nicholas Bauer from ENCA. Minister, is Cabinet of the opinion that you can make this decision solely on the executive level? I understand that you said you've informed the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the NCOP, but as the Rome Statute was brought into South African law by Parliament, surely you need to consult Parliament and all of its members to withdraw the statute from our legal system.
All right, thanks, Nicholas. Minister, I'll hand over to you to deal with those questions. Then we'll go to Cape Town later. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Let me, from the outset, indicate the following, that in addition, as I indicated, we have informed the Speaker and the Chair of the NCOP of the executive decision, but also on the same breath requested the Speaker to allow us an opportunity to make a ministerial statement in the Assembly at the earliest convenience. And the purpose of that statement will be to further elucidate the full background leading to this decision, which in the context of this media briefing, we thought it wouldn't be prudent to elaborate in much detail on. But most of the facts are public knowledge. You have traversed this journey with us since the matter first arose, when the matter of President al-Bashir came to the fore in June last year, and all the other events that unfolded subsequent thereto. I will not elaborate on that at this point. We intend to do so in that ministerial statement. But let me immediately deal with the question of procedure. In terms of our constitution, and it is equally, as we understand it, in terms of international law as it currently applies and practice, the authority to negotiate, entering into and actually acceding to or signing international instruments is the preserve of the executive. The effect of submitting instruments once acceded to for ratification to Parliament is to accord binding legal effect in the Republic of those instruments. In other words, beyond just an obligation that the state incurs by virtue of acceding to an instrument, the ratification has the effect of making that instrument part of our law, of our international law. The further step, of course, is domestication, as has occurred in relation to both statutes that are at issue here, which has the effect of integrating the international law instrument into our domestic law regime or dispensation. So those are three clearly distinct steps that can apply in relation to dealing with international law. Now, in terms of the legal procedure that I've just outlined, it stands to reason, therefore, that given the prerogative of the executive to enter into international agreement, it is equally the prerogative of the executive to withdraw from such agreements in terms of the applicable provisions of those international instruments, as has occurred in this instance. Now, the effect thereof, of course, is that once the country has withdrawn its accession to an international instrument, the natural effect is that the ratification thereof, the earlier ratification thereof, automatically falls off. However, because domestication occurs by way of an act of Parliament, that act continues in force until repealed or dealt with otherwise by Parliament. And that is the next step that is sought to be achieved. The purpose of requesting an audience with Parliament and informing the Speaker and the Chair of the NCOP is for purposes of formal notification of both houses of the decision of the executive. And as I indicated, we have requested in the case of the Assembly an opportunity to make a ministerial statement in order to set out fully the background relating to this decision. The question about the SA ruling being standing in the light of the decision to abandon the appeal to the Concord and the legal effect thereof, or the question whether the implication is that government is now accepting the full effect of that decision, of that SCA decision. Of course, the natural consequence is that unless and until appealed successfully, the SCA decision stands in its fullness. And of course, you'll notice that in our statement, we acknowledge that the effect of that decision is that whilst it recognizes that international customary law relating to diplomatic immunity continues to apply, it, on the same breath, does confirm the earlier decision of the North Gauteng High Court to the effect that South Africa had failed to honor its obligations under domestic law by not effecting the arrest. So to the extent that that component of that decision remains part of the ruling, obviously, until appealed against, that position stands. You may want to ask me what then. I guess the layman way of putting it is that we will cross the bridge when we get to it. At this point in time, our focus is to ensure that our international law is properly aligned, international law obligations are properly aligned with our domestic law so that our international policy can be better prosecuted without the legal uncertainties and contradictions that currently prevails, not only under our domestic law, but also under the Rome Statute, the background of which you are aware of. The question relating to the preference of upholding international diplomatic immunities law over the Rome Statute is clearly set out in our statement. We have indicated that our international policy outlook focuses on promoting peace, stability, especially in the African continent and, of course, elsewhere in the world. And for us to achieve that, we should be able to facilitate dialogue in conflict resolution. And part of what may be needed to happen is for us to even be able to host conflicting parties to ensure that we facilitate the attainment of peaceful resolution of conflicts elsewhere in the world. For as long as this legislation and the uncertainties which are yet to be resolved with regard to the Rome Statute itself remain, and for as long as we continue to be party to such Rome Statute, as well as for as long as the domestication thereof continues to be part of our statute book, the legal uncertainty continues to hinder this country from being able to host such activities in our country because of this impediment. And therefore, it is in that context that a difficult choice had to be made, hence the time it's taken us to arrive at this. You may well be aware that we have made representations in November last year. I led a delegation jointly with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation at The Hague, sought to persuade state parties to the Rome Statute to at least help us resolve the impasse between Article 27 and 98, and that until this date, that request has not yet been heeded to, and we feel that this is continuing to be an impediment for us as a country to effectively implement our international policy in this regard. The issue of recourse of victims of human rights violations contemplated under the Rome Statute is a matter that can be dealt with in many other ways beyond just what the Rome Statute seeks to offer. I may from the outset indicate that on a daily basis in my capacity, I consider applications for extradition of persons who entered elsewhere in the world to stand trial for various crimes under their respective domestic laws. And I cannot think of any country with which we enjoy this kind of relationship of having such legal arrangements where we can extradite people or where we can afford mutual legal assistance, not having in some form or another under their respective criminal laws provisions that will enable them to effectively prosecute persons who are in violation of some of these crimes. Of course, the distinction here, fundamentally, is that you now, under the Rome Statute, would be able to hold or arrest sitting heads of states in this country and hold them before our own courts and even ensure that they are prosecuted, etc. Whether under our court or in our courts or refer them to the ICC. One cannot think of a more plausible scenario of forced regime change by one country on another than a scenario I've just described. Indeed, if the consequence of the full implementation of what was contemplated when President al-Bashir was here last year had occurred, the consequence naturally speaks for itself, as I've just stated. The issue of South Africa's reputation on the human rights charts, we have outlined in our statement the fact that South Africa is a participant and continues to honor its obligations under various international human rights and continental human rights instruments. But we further said that Africa is in the process of strengthening its own human rights institutions and instruments to which we are party under the auspices of the AU. And our commitment is to continue to work closely with like-minded countries at AU level to ensure that South Africa continues to be the beacon of light in the promotion of human rights here and elsewhere in the world. The question relating to constitutionality, I guess, of this decision and how far we're prepared to go in defending this decision, we think it's a simple and straightforward matter. The Constitution is clear, and so is international law, that negotiating and acceding to international instruments or agreements is the prerogative of the executive. The executive has thus exercised such prerogative as entitled under our Constitution and international law, and we do not foresee any legal difficulties arising out of this. And of course, as has happened in the past, if any interested party is of a different view, naturally those matters will be resolved accordingly as they arise. The question of the role of Parliament, which is in a sense been covered in my earlier comment, as I indicated, is that save for the repeal bill that we will be tabling shortly in Parliament, which will depend on Parliament's decision to complete the process in that it would remove the domestication effect of the Rome Statute. The only other aspect, with legal advice sought and having been duly considered, the only remaining matter is for us to be afforded the opportunity in Parliament to give a full expose of the decision of the executive in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now go to Cape Town. Andile, we are now ready to indulge the colleagues in Cape Town.
Thank you, Chair. Over to you, Janet.
Hi, Minister. It's Janet Hurd from Media 24. If you could just clarify, if you're not going to appeal the SCA, go to the Concourt, what does that mean now? Will there be action taken if you sort of saying that it was actually the breach of the law? Will action be taken against officials who were involved in the decision? Because that was what was seen to be done what was going to happen at the time. And secondly, it seems that this decision could have gone through, if you say you have executive authority, that's one thing, but a decision of such a big nature, would it not have been better to have taken it through Parliament, a parliamentary process? Even if you say the executive can do it, surely this would be a sort of a more reasonable procedure to go through, to actually really discuss it at length. Thanks.
Bianca.
Good morning, Bianca Capozorio from the Sunday Times. I just wanted to check, in this year-long period in which it will take to withdraw from the Rome Statute, what would happen if, say, someone like Omar al-Bashir had to come back? Where do we stand on that situation?
That's all for now. Back to you.
All right, let's take some here in Pretoria. I think this is the last round. Let's give those, Nicholas, who did not get a chance before. We have a hand at the back. Prince, the gentleman next to you had his hand up. Yes, sir.
This decision could be seen as a...
Your name
Sorry,
and the media
Joe
house,
Brock, Reuters. Okay. This decision could be seen as a vote of no confidence in the ICC. Could you comment on how successful or unsuccessful, effective or ineffective South Africa believes the ICC and the Rome Statute has been?
All right. Yes, madam.
Harumtasa, Al Jazeera English. Do you feel that the ICC is unfairly targeting African governments and African leaders?
All right, thanks. I'm trying to give those who never had an opportunity before I go to Adrian and Nicholas. Or in the absence of any, get a second bite of the cherry. Adrian?
Aldrin Sampier again from SABC TV News. Minister, do you at all think that it was a matter of oversight from the previous administration back in 2002 to sign, to be a signatory to the Rome Statute? And what do you think has changed since then? What was the intention then back in 2002 to sign to the Rome Statute, to be a signatory to the Rome Statute, that has now changed since then?
Nicholas
Barr from ENCA again. Just for clarity, please, Minister, you're saying that this decision to withdraw needs to be passed through Parliament and receive Parliament's approval. So this is a follow-on from the first question in Cape Town. Does that include a two-thirds majority? You're saying that the executive can enter into treaties, so that's their prerogative to withdraw from treaties. What is Parliament's expected involvement in this decision then? If you're saying that you've alerted them and you want to brief the National Assembly, what exactly are you hoping?
All right. Val, did you have your hand up? Okay, fine. Then we close in Pretoria and then give a chance to Minister to respond to Cape Town and Pretoria. Minister, over to you. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much. The case. What was the first question? I have already indicated earlier on that we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. You'd recall that right at the tail end of the North Gauteng matter, we were required and actually furnished an affidavit outlining the circumstances leading to the departure, and I'm just paraphrasing, so don't quote me verbatim, circumstances leading to the departure of President al-Bashir, which affidavit was filed and stands as a public document. What arises out of that, whether there is any consequence to any person in law arising out of the facts outlined in that affidavit, it's a matter for others to determine. And at this stage, I wouldn't be in a position to speculate whether that would translate in any wrongdoing being pointed at any person. That is a matter to be dealt with elsewhere. The question relating to Parliament's role, which also ties in with the earlier question and the latter question relating to approval or seeking of approval with Parliament, I have indicated that it is not required, according to legal advice obtained by government, that Parliament's approval first be sought before the executive can negotiate and enter into international agreements. And equally, the same applies when the executive decides to withdraw, of course, in accordance with the provisions of such agreements, from such agreements. That is entirely constitutionally and under international law, as we understand it, the prerogative of the executive. The consequence of withdrawal from an international agreement renders the earlier ratification of such agreement to fall through naturally. However, as I indicated, the fact of the domestication of the agreement through a parliamentary statute continues to stand until such time, because only Parliament can repeal its laws. It is the prerogative of Parliament under our Constitution and not the executive to pass law. And as long as a law has been passed by Parliament, it remains in place until repealed and, of course, unless struck down by a decision of a competent court, or a competent court decision. So that is the context in this regard. The matter of what if President al-Bashir returns, I wouldn't be in a position to speculate in that regard. At this stage, all I know is that the obligations that apply when South Africa was a member of the Rome Statute continues to apply 12 months after notification of withdrawal has been tabled with the Secretary General of the United Nations, which has now occurred. As to whether future visits would amount to exposure to the warrant that has since been issued, and what the consequence of that would be, it's a matter which those who would be dealing with the matter at the time would have to look at in determining the appropriate decision to take in the circumstances. So I'd prefer not to speculate in that regard. The question relating to confidence. The question relating to whether this is a vote of no confidence against the ICC. Let me indicate that South Africa, as one of the, I think, approximately 127 or so state parties to the Rome Statute, at its session in November last year in The Hague, Was it The Hague or was it New York? I think it was The Hague. Yeah, I think it was The Hague. Sought assistance from the body politic of the ICC, which is the constituent members of the ICC, to clarify the apparent contradiction or confusion resulting from different interpretations of the relationship between Article 27 and 98. It was clear from the debate, and I participated in that debate, and we sought to outline our understanding of the obligations of the Assembly of State Parties, namely that under international law of interpretation, the body that establishes the international agreement has the final word when it comes to interpreting the meaning of that instrument. And based on that understanding of international law, we sought assistance from the ASP, Assembly of State Parties, to at least bring the uncertainty to rest by providing that interpretation. We were not successful in that campaign, if you like. Instead, we were generally referred to the judicial chamber, which we have difficulties with. We have certain issues that are still pending with them. We felt that they did not allow us to enjoy fully our rights under Article 97 when we sent an envoy back in June before President al-Bashir arrived here, seeking clarity on our obligations prior to his arrival, etc. I will not go into those details. I think, as I indicated, we will set out the full background of this drawn-out history between ourselves and the ICC relating to this matter. But essentially, at that meeting, the matter was referred to the Bureau of the ICC. We went to the Bureau, we made our representations based on our understanding of international law. While there was some appreciation, at least from some of the members, it was clear that we were not going very far with this matter at the level of the ICC. And that is one of the considerations that led us to come to the conclusion that after a drawn-out effort to try and have this matter resolved where it belongs, we have not been successful. Of course, we have participated at the AU summit in January in Addis Ababa, where we again briefed the AU of our experience. And of course, we received support, overwhelming support from the AU in this regard. So we are at a point where we have decided as a country that we do need to put this matter to rest. We need to move on as a country. We do have work to do. We need to promote peace, stability, and prosperity in Africa. And we cannot achieve this profound policy goals and our international policy for as long as we continue to be impeded by this legal impediments, and hence we are where we are. The question relating to targeting of African leaders, those are comments that have been widely publicized as positions that have been held in the African continent and have been expressed at different fora. So I need not deliberate much on that. Between 2001 or 2 and 2015 or 16, what has changed. Now, of course, it is a fact that after our parliament domesticated customary international law dealing with diplomatic immunity, only approximately 6 months later, went on to pass the domestication of the Rome Statute, which has had the effect, at least by way of a clause, a general trumping clause, been interpreted to have had the effect of suppressing the applicability of that earlier domestication act relating to diplomatic immunity, with the consequence that South Africa now finds itself, in terms of its own domestic law at least, unable to honor its diplomatic immunity obligations. This may have been an oversight at the time. It may well be that the writers of our laws at the time understood matters differently, that did not necessarily constitute a contradiction, and that there would be a basis for some complementarity. I cannot speculate on that aspect. Safe to say that we are where we are, and we have to do what we have to do. The question relating to consultation with Parliament, I think I've dealt with it more than once. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Minister will be kind enough to indulge you in one-on-ones after this on any matters that you feel you need more clarity and you did not have an opportunity to do so here. Thank you very much for your patience and the statement you've already been provided with. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you.
We tell you about Africa's social media and technology landscape.
21st century economies rely on technology to truly thrive.
We have quite a comprehensive portfolio of interventions in the tech entrepreneurship space.
And Africans are using tech and social media to solve the continent's unique challenges.
App Nigeria is an online marketplace.
Radio Vibe is a social media platform for radio music.
That's Network with me, Pumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Moved to ease tensions created by the heated public spat between National Treasury and Eskom.
Eskom denied allegations of impropriety regarding the matter. National Treasury issued a statement accusing Eskom of lying.
The fracas over hairstyles at a Pretoria school has drawn sharp focus on underlying racism and alleged abuse in some schools.
We want relevant answers from the MEC. You must fire the principal.
Here too, similar sentiments of underlying racism.
It just made me feel like I was not worthy enough of an education because of the type of hairstyle that I had. Because yesterday the statement was, writing an exam is a privilege.
It's 11 o'clock. It's the final hour here in Newsroom. My name is Elvis Preslin.
I'm Renee Vest.
And of course, right here, Kendall Makamat.
Now, we'll be with you until 12 o'clock. This is the final hour. Now, today we focus on a very weighty issue, and that's lifestyle diseases among civil servants. On our question today, Renee.
Yes, we're asking, so South Africa's public servants are too overweight, according to a report. What is your view on this?
You can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But we're also conducting a poll, and we're asking you the following, and let's see if that poll is up. If it is not up, we're asking you that question. Here it is. Are South African police too heavy-handed with student protests? It's all about heavy-handedness and heavy weights, it seems like it. But what does the numbers say, Kendall?
Oh, well, we've got 234 votes, quite a lot. 20 hours left to go. But we've got 9% not interested and 27% saying no, they're not too heavy-handed.
Well, it seems most of those who voted say yes. Yes, they are too heavy-handed when dealing with our students.
Over two-thirds says yes, and yeah, so the police are heavy-handed with the protests that we've seen happening on our campuses. But right now, let's first take a look at your news headlines. Our top story today, South Africa sends a letter to the United Nations Secretary General expressing its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
The Independent Police Investigative Directorate has confirmed that it will investigate the shooting of Wit student leader and other students.
And the public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, is expected to respond to the interdict application against publishing the state capture report today. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamat what's happening on the sports front.
Good morning to the both of you. I've got a special treat for our viewers this morning. I've got Evan in the hot seat answering questions about sports, which should be quite a lot of fun. Good morning to you. This is what else we've got for you in the sports today.
The willingness of the participants to share the insight and energy in the discussions of the past 2 days were outstanding. We were asked to collaborate on day one, and we got that from the participants.
With the end of the two-day rugby indaba in Cape Town, Saru Drost and Free State Cheetahs head coach Franco Smith and Golden Lions defence specialist JP Ferreira for the end-of-year tour next month.
So we've had one pilot session so far, which was very different. It's definitely something we still need to get used to. So tonight's training session is, I guess, a step in the right direction again in terms of adapting to those conditions. And just take it as it comes, you know.
The Proteas are looking forward to their first pink ball day-night test with a practice match under the lights this weekend.
Kanabachi Rooney. Lingard had to fetch it from behind him. Pogba! That's unity! 3-0. Pogba and the double.
In the Europa League, Paul Pogba dazzles in Manchester United's 4-1 victory over Fenerbahce. And this and more we've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin about 11:35 or so. But for now, it's back to Renee, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Michael Masuta, says South Africa's role as a mediator of peace on the African continent and its membership in the ICC have resulted in a conflict of interest. Minister Masuta says this is the basis for South Africa's intention to leave the ICC.
The Republic of South Africa is a founder member of the African Union and plays an important role in resolving conflicts on the African continent and in encouraging the peaceful resolution of conflicts wherever they occur anywhere else in the world. In exercising its international relations with foreign countries, particularly with countries in which serious conflicts occur or have occurred, South Africa is hindered by the implementation of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court Act, number 2, and that's Act number 27 of 2002. This Act and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court compel South Africa to arrest persons who may enjoy diplomatic immunity under customary international law, but who are wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and to surrender such persons to the International Criminal Court. South Africa has to do so even under circumstances where we are actively involved in promoting peace, stability, and dialogue in those countries. We wish to give effect to the rule of customary international law, which recognizes the diplomatic immunity of heads of state and others in order to effectively promote dialogue and the peaceful resolution of conflicts wherever they may occur, particularly on the African continent.
Meanwhile, Minister Michael Masuta says that the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal still stands.
Until appealed successfully, the SCA decision stands in its fullness. And of course, you'll notice that in our statement, we acknowledge that the effect of that decision is that whilst it recognizes that international customary law relating to diplomatic immunity continues to apply, it, on the same breath, does confirm the earlier decision of the North Gauteng High Court to the effect that South Africa had failed to honor its obligations under our domestic law by not effecting the arrest. So, to the extent that that component of that decision remains part of the ruling, obviously, until appealed against, that position stands.
South Africa has sent a letter to the United Nations Secretary General signaling its intention to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Now, this letter was written and signed by the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Maite Nkwane Mashibane. It says the withdrawal from the Rome Statute, which established the court, will take effect 1 year after the date of its receipt by the UN chief.
The letter, seen first by SABC News, says the Republic of South Africa has found its obligations with respect to the peaceful resolution of conflicts at times incompatible with the interpretation given by the International Criminal Court. It has attached documents to this cover letter, which we have not as yet seen, to explain their reasoning in this regard. The move by the government follows a clarion call from the ruling ANC last year that the country withdraw from the Rome Statute with claims the court had lost direction. The government has for more than a year now been engaged in court proceedings after being accused of disgraceful conduct for allowing ICC-indicted Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir to leave the country that was hosting an AU summit in Johannesburg at the time. After losing their appeal to the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein, the government, lodged a final petition to the Constitutional Court that has yet to rule on the matter. The UN spokesperson would not confirm receipt of the letter to the Secretary General, saying rather that they did not have any language to share at this time. South Africa's withdrawal follows a similar letter from Burundi earlier this week, announcing their exit from the International Criminal Court. Sherwin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Now, still on the matter of South Africa signalling a withdrawal from the International Court, our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, spoke to the ICC prosecutor, Fatalbi Bensouda, about this matter. Let's take a look.
The case is, as you know, still pending arrest warrants. We've investigated into this case since the referral was made by the UN Security Council to the ICC. We have brought several cases. We've requested for several arrest warrants, not only Mr. al-Bashir, but also against Minister Hussein and Hassan. And also we have the case against alleged rebels against the government, Abu Garda, Banda, and Jerbo. So these are several cases, and this just manifests the work that the court has been doing with respect to the situation in Darfur. So the arrest warrants are pending, but as you have seen, the court still has difficulty in ensuring that Mr. al-Bashir and others are arrested and brought to the court. And we keep on asking the states parties whose responsibility it is to arrest that they arrest Mr. Bashir and hand him over to the court. Because the court was created, as I said at the very beginning, the court was created for it to do its judicial work, its legal work. But the states have the mandate and responsibility, as I said, to execute the warrants, to cooperate with the court, to assist the court in ensuring that the process takes place. And we have been requesting from all states parties that this obligation that they have should be respected, and that Mr. al-Bashir and others who are wanted by the ICC should be arrested and brought to the ICC. So this is where we are, but you know everything that is happening, the fact that states are not willing, especially state parties, are not willing to, do not have the political will to arrest and surrender Mr. al-Bashir to the court.
He visited South Africa. Talk about state parties who are not willing, you know, to take political responsibility, to hand him over. The South African case, how far are you? As you are visiting South Africa, were you able to speak to the South African government about that outstanding pending matter?
The issue with the Mr. al-Bashir and what happened in South Africa and the failure to arrest is a matter that is before the courts now. It is both before the domestic courts in South Africa, but also it is pending before the ICC. And I cannot say much about it. It's a matter that is still pending, and we will wait for what the judges will decide. I want to say that I'm a prosecutor, and my role is to investigate and prosecute these crimes, and this is what I'm trying to do. The decision to join the ICC or to leave the ICC is a decision by states themselves. It's a sovereign decision that states voluntarily take to join the ICC or to leave the ICC. With respect to this so-called movement that you're saying about withdrawing from the ICC, I prefer to talk about it not as the prosecutor, but as an African. I'm an African. I am a candidate that the African Union themselves endorsed as Africa's sole candidate to sit as prosecutor for the ICC. And I have said from the very beginning that I will exercise this role with full independence and impartiality. And this is what I have been trying to do. If, as an...
Do you feel betrayed by the group?
Well, I wouldn't, I mean, it's a matter of interest. I think all this is really politics and interest that is at play. And people have their interest, and they try to do what they can to ensure that their interests are realized. But as I said, as an African, it would really be a regression on the continent, a regression, a very bad regression for us to decide to choose impunity over justice.
Meanwhile, earlier we spoke to our correspondent in Brussels, Kevin Osbeck, to give us an update on the letter sent by South Africa to the United Nations Secretary General indicating our withdrawal from the International Criminal Court.
We're still waiting on the UN to confirm that it has received this letter from South Africa, but if in fact this is the case, South Africa then has 1 year to leave the ICC. So in other words, the International Criminal Court still has jurisdiction over South Africa for 1 more year once it notifies the UN. Now, this is clearly troubling times for the ICC because just last week, President Pierre Nkurunziza of Burundi signed off on legislation that says Burundi also intends to leave the ICC. Now, at this point, the UN isn't confirming if it has received any official notification from Burundi as well, but it appears there are 2 African countries now very intent on leaving the International Criminal Court.
Now, has the ICC confirmed that it has received that letter from South Africa, and will the process now start and kick off from the date of receival?
At this point, no. And how this process works is the country, the ICC member country, notifies the UN not the ICC, its intent to leave. So it's really the UN right now that is in possession of this letter. So no response from the ICC just yet. Even though the Burundi president signed off on this legislation last week, we also haven't heard from the ICC commenting on that situation yet. And that's because the International Criminal Court in The Hague says it hasn't received official notification from the UN yet in terms of the Burundi situation. But regardless of the technicalities here, one has to question right now, what is the future of the ICC? Is this an international criminal court that will be able to withstand the test of time?
Now, in another big story of the day, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is to investigate the shooting of student leader and former Wits University SRC president Shahira Kala, as well as other students. This happened yesterday. Now, Kala was hit 13 times in the back with a rubber bullet during a fees protest. Wits spokesperson Sharona Patel says a total of 10 students were hit by rubber bullets and that 4 of them, including Kala, are being treated in hospital.
Protesting students disrupted chemical engineering tests. Lectures halted and police respond. Senior Kala tries to intervene, but is shot several times with rubber bullets. A third day of clashes at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. The cars of 8 staff members stoned and classes disrupted again. 33 students and staff will spend another night behind bars after their bail hearing was postponed to Friday. Students at Cape Peninsula University of Technology held a general assembly. Both UCT and CPUT campuses remain closed. On Wednesday night, UWC suspended face-to-face lectures for the year. Students will be allowed to write their final exams in November or January.
Meanwhile, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate has confirmed that it will investigate the shooting and wounding of student leader Shahira Kala and other students after police fired rubber bullets yesterday. Now, Kala was shot 13 times in the back with rubber bullets during a Fees Must Fall protest on the university's Braamfontein campus. Police spokesperson Sally De Beer called on police to exercise maximum restraint and operate within the law. De Beer says any police officer found to have contravened the law will be dealt with accordingly. Now, Wits spokesperson Sharona Patel says a total of 10 students were shot with rubber bullets, of which 4 of them are being treated in hospital. Now, it was another eventful day at campuses around the country yesterday. Student leaders were shot at Wits in Johannesburg, and several student leaders and activists appeared in courts in the Western and Eastern Cape.
Protesting students disrupted chemical engineering tests. Lectures halted and police respond. Senior Kala tries to intervene, but is shot several times with rubber bullets.
Well, we do have more footage there for you. We'll bring you that at a later stage. The organisers of today's free education march to the union buildings will face legal action. That's according to the City of Tshwane Metro Police Department, which says the march was illegal. But students maintain they followed all the proper channels for the march, and among their demands, the immediate release of arrested students.
A march by students to the union buildings. Tshwane Metro says it never gave the march the green light, but students went ahead anyway.
Definitely there will be legal consequences for the organizers. If they continue with the march, we might open a case at a local police station, and anything should go wrong, the organizers of the march might be held accountable for anything that goes wrong in this particular march.
Civil society and some school pupils joined the march. It started fairly peacefully, but later clashes between students and police.
We currently spend 3% of our GDP on the military. Why is this necessary when we have such important social issues that need attention?
The government official sent to accept the memorandum was rejected by students. Meanwhile, former President Kgalema Motlanthe has called on government and universities to find a solution to the impasse. Motlanthe made the remarks earlier in Durban.
Issues of funding of institutions of higher learning and management of that should really be addressed by the university councils together with government. It is really not a burden that we should place on students.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has also weighed in. He has reiterated government's stance in condemning acts of violence and vandalism of property.
There are some within the ranks of the students, probably a minority, who have engaged in violence and the destruction of property. And this act on its own, violence and destruction of property, goes against the democratic principles of accepting dissent. Dissent, yes, it is the oxygen that democracy needs, but it needs to be exercised in a way where we do not undermine our own democratic principles.
An inter-ministerial committee set up by the president has been strengthened with the addition of finance ministers Pravin Gordhan, Faith Mutambi and Lindiwe Sisulu. This follows the ANC National Workings Committee's recommendation that the team be strengthened. Sipho Sterman, SABC News, Pretoria.
In other news, Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane will submit a responding affidavit to the interdict application against publishing the State Capture Report today. From President Jacob Zuma and Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Des van Rooyen have applied for an interdict to prevent the report's release. The new Public Protector has not seen the report, which was compiled by her predecessor, Thuli Madonsela. Speaking during a media briefing at her head office yesterday, Mkhwebane said she was not sure whether she would oppose or agree with the application for an interdict. In news from further afield, President Barack Obama has described Donald Trump's claims that the U.S. elections is being rigged as dangerous and corrosive for democracy. Trump refused to commit to accepting the results if he lost during his final presidential debate with Hillary Clinton on Wednesday.
This is more than just the usual standard lie. Because when you suggest rigging or fraud without a shred of evidence, when last night at the debate, Trump becomes the first major party nominee in American history to suggest that he will not concede despite losing the vote, and then says today that he will accept the results if he wins. That is not a joking matter. No, I want everybody to pay attention here. That is dangerous. Because when you try to sow the seeds of doubt in people's minds about the legitimacy of our elections, that undermines our democracy. Then you're doing the work of our adversaries for them. Because our democracy depends on people knowing that their vote matters.
Well, that's the news for this hour. It's time now to take a break. We'll be back after this.
If you look at artists, they've got one of the abilities to either form new conversations, they can paint a picture of a country, they can paint a picture of a mindset of a country.
The Cape Town-based ballet dancer recently won at the 2016 and 2017 Rolex Mentor and Prodigy Arts Initiative.
South African hip-hop right now is sitting at a level where it's Ngutu, Yippee and Roll Up. When you put them all in one room, you actually have like the ultimate super South African fan.
And you're watching Trends. Do not go anywhere. Stay right there.
Catch Trends for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Saturday from 12 to 1.
A very good morning to you and welcome back. You're watching Sports on Newsroom. I'm Kendall Makamate, and we're going to have a quick look of what's happening in sports this weekend. Joining me to do just that is, of course, the usual suspect, Jody Hendricks, SABC sports analyst and commentator, and somebody that you haven't seen and heard speaking about sports in a long while, Eben Jansen, veteran sports journalist.
True, it's still my first love, and I'm very concerned now as a South African watching the box. Yeah, I think we all kind of need to put our thinking caps on a little bit and give us 5 cents. I know Jody's been inundated with questions on how to fix the box. Unfortunately, there's no quick fix.
That's exactly that. But that's exactly where we want to start it, isn't it? About the rugby indaba that will just come out of.
But 5-10 years too late, Kendall. This should have happened maybe after the 2011 World Cup, because for me that was when a shift in world rugby started with the likes of Argentina, when they hired the former All Black coach as their technical director. Japan started investing a lot in rugby, and they're reaping the rewards, and South Africa was left behind.
What's happening in South Africa that we missed that golden opportunity?
South Africa has a problem of culture. Cultural problem, which means the way that we manage rugby. And the way we manage rugby is that in South Africa for the last 15, 20 years, let's call it with the rise of professionalism and players going to Europe, what we see is that the individual is celebrated before the group. So you look after the individual first before you look after the greater group. And that is a deeply rooted cultural problem now in South African rugby that goes through the administrators and through the player pool especially. If you look at who are the players that have left South Africa over the last 10, 15 years, they're not so much has-been players. They're very much the journeyman professionals, the guys who can't make it at the very top. But those are the guys that keep your unions alive, and they've all left. And we're stuck with a lot of very good players and a lot of young players.
Yeah, I agree with Eben to a certain extent. Rugby became professional in 1995, but SARU's approach has still, or their structures have remained very much amateur, and that's not the way New Zealand thinks, where in New Zealand they've become very centralized, where the All Blacks come first. In South Africa, you still have a situation where your provincial unions, your franchises, they put their players first, and they play the players because they pay a large amount of their salaries, and the Springboks are left reeling, and that's why we are not getting results.
Let's have a quick look at the big points that came out of the indaba. We do know that the Free State coach as well as a Lions coach have been drafted in for the end-of-year tour. Can you give us your thoughts on the big points of the rugby indaba?
Yeah, well, obviously, defence, if we just have to look at the last game the Boks played against the All Blacks, where we leaked in 9 tries. Defence clearly a problem. The defensive coach has been a problem. We've had JP Ferreira will be the 3rd one this year after, I think, Sean Roux was in the Rugby Championship, and then earlier this year they had Jacques Nienaber doing duty against Ireland. So, definitely if he performs, if we have a good defensive record on this end of year tour, he might be the long-term solution. And then obviously Franco Smith, the Cheetahs are playing fantastic rugby at the moment, and, running rugby, and I think it will only be to the benefit of the Boks to have somebody like him giving input.
Even one of the things that came out was going into this particular indaba was the Springboks seem slightly schizophrenic in terms of their style of play. Do you think that the 2 days we had was enough to figure that out?
No, it wasn't. But as long as there's sort of consensus of the direction that we're going in, that is important. I think this. We're calling it schizophrenia. It's nothing new. South Africa has always had a conundrum about whether to run the ball. In the previous generation, it was you have to earn the right to go wide. That used to be the consensus when South Africa was a very forward-dominated side. The bottom line is it's not about that decision-making. It's about skills. Mm-hmm. And in South African rugby, we lack the skills that our New Zealand counterparts have developed. As Jody said, probably for the last decade. They play a lot of touch rugby, for instance, in New Zealand during practice. And that's where you get the beautiful fast hands and the fast pace and all of that. If you go to a South African franchise and you ask them to play touch rugby as a warm-up or even after practice, they would laugh at you. And it's those little nuances where I think that we are averse to change a little bit. And that's where I talked a little bit earlier about culture, is that we talk a lot about changes need to happen, but when it needs to be implemented, we always turn our back on change and we go back to what we know, which is kind of, Jody, what we saw now with Alistair. Oh, we have to win this next 2 games, so we must play Bok rugby.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Yeah, and we've got to look at it holistically. It's got to start right at the bottom at school level, because if you look at it under 13 Craven Week tournament, for example, it's always the bigger guys that get chosen, and the smaller guys with maybe a bit more skill gets left out, and you know that creates a problem further down the line. So I think skills definitely a problem in South African rugby. The game plan of where our forwards dominated went out with the Super Rugby title in 2007, and rugby's developed, and we're struggling to keep up.
All right, now we're going to run out of time before we touch on everything else we need to talk about. Let's have a look at the Currie Cup final. Being played out in Bloemfontein, City of Roses. Cheetahs have done extremely well. They've actually dominated this entire season up against the Blue Bulls.
And they're playing a Lions type of rugby that we wanted the Boks to play. So, you know, and second South African team that's realized that we can't just, you know, bash the ball up forward. They've got some fantastic players out wide. Sergil Peterson, Raymond Rule, Clayton Blomik is their back 3. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach the game. The Bulls, they've tried to do the running rugby, but when they were put under pressure, they went back to the forwards dominating type of game plan. So it will be I think the home ground advantage will definitely be a factor, and there I put my money on the Cheetahs.
The thing that's come through for me with the Cheetahs is that it's not a new side. It's not like players have emerged from out of space and suddenly Franco Smith have put them on the field and they're outplaying everyone else. That's not the case. It's a simple thing that Franco's focused on. Fitness, which is the other thing that lacks in South African rugby, and in the way that we train and the way we've trained for generations, is that fitness. This Cheetah side, I see it as fit as it's probably as I've ever seen it. And it's the same players that were fighting for the wooden spoon in Super Rugby.
For me, it was a process. If you look 2 years ago, I think about 80% of this team played Varsity Cup rugby. Franco then took this team, played Currie Cup. They had a disastrous Currie Cup in their first season. He went on, played Super Rugby with them, and now he has Super Rugby players, Currie Cup, and now they're dominating.
Oh, fantastic stuff. We've also got another final on the cards this weekend. Mamelodi Sundowns are up against Zamalek out in Alexandria, Egypt. They've already run into a couple of hassles. Started like off the bat. They couldn't get training yesterday. We don't even know if they've got a facility today.
It's only the normal practice when you travel through the continent. I've done it. You know, they're very lucky, this Sundown side, because I've travelled with a couple of teams where there were lots of mosquitoes in your rooms, where bands would play outside your window, all that kind of thing. There'd be hojas and things in your bed and stuff. You can't sleep the night before. So, you know, it's what it takes to win in Africa, man.
Yeah, but they're going in with a fantastic 3-0 lead, and we actually don't even know if they've got mosquitoes or not out there.
Yeah, I think the defence is probably going to be important for Sundowns this weekend for them to defend that 3-0 lead. But talking about the shenanigans, one of the things I heard was even death threats against some of the Sundowns players. So, you know, they're pulling out all the stops to make sure that Sundowns does not become the first South African team since 1995 to win the CAF Championship. Defence is going to be important. If they get 1 goal, I think that will be enough for them to secure the title.
I'll say it, Pitser's a much maligned man, but he's done a super job. He's got some great talent in the side, and they deserve to win this title, let's be honest.
No, I think everybody's behind you on that one, and everybody agreeing with you on that one. And last but not least, we've got the last 4 races in the Formula 1 season. It seems as if Nico Rosberg literally needs to just come in second. He can coast through and take the Drivers' Championship this year.
Yeah, I think in America this weekend, the circuit is going to be a bit challenging. I saw Lewis Hamilton tweeting that he's looking forward to this race. He's obviously won there a few times before. The duel in the Mercedes team, that's probably what everybody's looking forward to. The 2 teammates will take it. Lewis still has an outside chance to become world champion, to defend his title successfully, but Nico Rosberg, I think, safe to say with 4 races to go, Kendall's got it in the bag probably.
Nico's shown some steel this year.
He has, but I'll quote Murray Walker. He says in Formula 1 anything can happen, and it usually does, which is what I expect in the last couple of races, because there's so much on the line. And you know, Nico has been the also man for so long. He's been in Lewis's shadow for so long. There's no doubt that right now he's overthinking this running a little bit, because it's only human. And he yearns, his father was a world champ, he yearns to be the world champ. It will be the defining moment, not of his career, but of his life. So the next couple of weeks are going to be very difficult for him. And if Lewis pitches up, and let's be honest, Lewis hasn't been at the races really the last couple of months. I've seen him partying with Rihanna and in all sorts of places. You know, when you're partying with Rihanna,
it's hard to keep you focused.
It's very tough to come back from that, my friend.
No, I agree. For me, it would have been a lot more entertaining if they had to be in opposing teams. But, you know, as fate would have it, they're in the same team. And, you know, it's probably the script couldn't have been written any better for two teammates to battle it out for the World Championship. But I must say I'm a bit disappointed. Red Bull's got a couple of podium finishes this year, but the other teams have really been disappointed, especially Ferrari. You know, a couple of years ago they were dominating Formula One, and things have just not worked out for them recently.
Yeah, but the Mercedes is a rocket. It's an absolute rocket ship, and they're 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone really, which is probably the biggest gap we've ever seen in the history of Formula One. So tough job. Hopefully next season, when the new law changes come and bigger tyres and all these kinds of things, hopefully when that happens, we'll see the likes of the great drivers like Fernando Alonso and Vettel and others come back into the picture, and we'll see some proper racing again, because it's a little bit boring now, isn't it?
No, I think Lewis Hamilton fans wouldn't say that, neither would Nico Rosberg's fans. But I'll tell you what, I think one of the big things that will go into the last four would probably be Mercedes and their reliability issues, because we all know how much Lewis Hamilton has struggled with his engines over the course of the season.
Yeah, they've secured the Constructors' title, so that's in the bag. But obviously, the two drivers would still want to become crowned world champions, and you know, both of them still technically have a chance to do it.
You know, Nico is a German rider in a German team, and Lewis happens to be the
There's a conspiracy theory going right there.
You know, and Lewis is, I'm not the one who scored. I'm not the one who's been screaming sabotage. That's been Lewis. He's been saying, "Oh, it looks like I've been sabotaged because I get all the bad starts and the bad luck
and the bad settings."
Kind of adds up.
We had it. We had two journalists, one veteran, one already through that door of being taken as a serious analyst, talking about what's happening over the weekend. Now, as you know already, the 2-day South African rugby coaching indaba ended in Cape Town yesterday. Acting SARU President Mark Alexander called it the best 2 days of being a rugby administrator, while Springbok coach Alistair Coetzee called it groundbreaking. Short-term interventions include 2 new temporary additions to the Springbok coaching staff for the end-of-the-year tour, which kicks off on the 5th of November.
The country's 6 Super Rugby franchise coaches, together with Coetzee's management team, former national coaches and captains, collaborated to map out a new way forward for South African rugby.
We were asked to collaborate on day one, and we got that from the participants. But the proof of the pudding will be in the outcome, and I'm glad to say it was solution-driven. The past 2 days, we focused on solutions. I must say that the past 2 days was the best 2 days for me as a rugby administrator.
Free State Cheetahs head coach Franco Smith and Golden Lions defence specialist JP Ferreira will join the box for the end-of-year tour next month. Smith will be involved with backline play and skills, while Ferreira will look after defence. A document will be produced within 10 days around the discussions at the indaba regarding skill sets and the way forward, while an indaba focused solely on conditioning will take place in December. Other problems that were highlighted were those of kicking and aerial skills.
We really, like I said, first and foremost, up our kicking execution. That is something that we need to get better at. And it's not something that everyone must kick in a game. You have to kick. And you think the All Blacks don't kick. They decide that will kick, that normally kicks the most in, you know, but they kick with a specific outcome.
Alexander said that structural changes to SARU and rugby attracting business people as shareholders will be discussed at the SARU executive meeting later this month.
We will address that issue around the structural issues we're facing in rugby and all the other issues we're dealing with. So we will, on the 27th, I'll be responding to that question.
A follow-up session involving another indaba is on the cards and will take place before the start of the 2017 Super Rugby season. Craig Murray, SABC News, Cape Town.
Right, now we break away from the sports to bring you breaking news. From the Tshwane University of Technology, we've heard that one of the student leaders, a Fees Must Fall movement leader, was reportedly killed in a hit and run. Now, for more details, we go through to SABC reporter Sipho Stierman, who's on site and has got more details.
A very good morning to you indeed. Sad news that we woke up to this morning that a student from the Tshwane University of Technology has died following protest last night, that is Thursday evening, in a hit-and-run accident. But to get more information as to exactly what happened, I've got the Tshwane University of Technology spokesperson with me to just give us details. Ma'am, thank you for joining us, but can you just confirm to us of this death and who it is that passed away?
Yes, good morning. The TUT community is really deeply saddened and shocked by the passing of Benjamin Petler. He was an ICT student at the Faculty of ICT, Information and Communication Technology, and is also a former chairperson of that Faculty Student Council. What seemed to happen is that a vehicle that lost control yesterday afternoon ploughed into a group of students who were on the road. 3 students were injured, they sustained minor injuries. He was critically injured and he passed away early this morning. And we would like to convey our condolences to his family, his loved ones and his friends. That's really sad, tragic and unnecessary.
Now, the reports have been saying that the young man is a leader and is an SRC member. Just talk to us about his role in the Fees Must Fall movement. Or do you know of the extent of the role he played?
He was a very popular leader at the Soshanguve campus and also within the Faculty of ICT. I'm not quite sure what his role in the Fees Must Fall was, but from what I understand, he was just part of a group of students walking to the Soshanguve North campus.
Now, how big was this group? And you mentioned that other 3 students have been injured. What state are they in, these other students?
Well, one student sustained a broken leg. They've been treated and they've been discharged from hospital. The size of the group, I'm not quite sure about that, and there's a police investigation underway.
And speaking of that police investigation, have they communicated with you guys if they have some lead or of the person who was involved in this accident was captured, was arrested rather?
Like I said, there's an investigation underway and I'm not at liberty to talk about it. You'll have to speak to the police.
All right, well, there you have it, a confirmation of a student leader that passed away last night at the TUT Soshanguve campus following an accident there where a driver of a vehicle allegedly lost control and plowed into a group of students, resulting to the death of the one student, and others were then injured in that incident. Of course, as she mentioned, that police are investigating, and we will follow up with police and find out more details about the person who was involved in this accident, the driver who was involved, as to whether they've been arrested and what charges they'll be facing. Is now back to you.
All right, now very busy morning we've got on our hands right now, and a little earlier this morning we had Henry Philemon, guitarist, multi-instrumentalist and singer, come talk to us about his debut jazz/soul album. It's called Man of Definition, and it's about this week's Friday performance. And we asked him where it all started, and this is what he had to say.
Henry Philemon is a guitarist, multi-instrumentalist and singer, and he guarantees that you will be captivated with his debut jazz soul album, Man of Definition, featuring former Joy Celebration singer Mahalia Bukana, with his take of the Letta Mbulu and Kaifa Semenya's classic, Music in the Air, the hit song, 4 AM, and the up-tempo wedding song, Ke Rata Wena Fela. Those are some of the gems on the album. Henry previously played with bands such as Yvonne Chaka Chaka, the late Nana Kyoto, Senyaka, and his favorite artist, Steve Kekana. He's joining us now in studio. A very good morning to you and welcome, Man of Definition.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for having me.
Tell us quickly, just briefly, about your interest in music and where did it all start?
Well, I grew up in a musical family where live instruments was always at my disposal, and I started off with the guitar. Mm-hmm. And I played in church. Yes. And when I was grew into this young man, a vibrant young man, I switched to piano. Mm-hmm. And then I started writing songs from the age of 12 years.
Now tell me about this album, Man of Definition.
Man of Definition, it's a long journey, Elvis. I always say that I believe that I am the degree of distinction, mm-hmm. and the songs that I've written on this album is really of great and deep character, and and this Man of That's Man of Definition.
It's available right now. Where can people get the song?
It's available in the stores, Musica. It's available in Musica, all the leading stores in South Africa.
Yes.
Yep.
And where can people see you perform?
Well, I perform at Ketsis, and I also perform in Randfontein in the West Rand.
Yes.
And people can also book me. I think my number's on the screen.
Yes, we'll give them
and
the
my
numbers.
And my agent's number.
Yes.
And yeah,
well,
they can get hold of me.
Mr. Philemon, all the best of luck with your album. That was performer, singer, a multi-instrumentalist, a man of definition, Henry Philemon, with his release of his latest jazz and soul album titled Man of Definition.
We tell you about Africa's social media and technology landscape.
21st century economies rely on technology to truly thrive.
We have quite a comprehensive portfolio of interventions in the tech entrepreneurship space.
And Africans are using tech and social media to solve the continent's unique challenges.
App Nigeria is an online marketplace.
Radio Vibe is a social media platform for radio music.
That's Network with me, Pumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Moved to ease tensions created by the heated public spat between National Treasury and Eskom.
Eskom denied allegations of impropriety regarding the matter. National Treasury issued a statement accusing Eskom of lying.
The fracas over hairstyles at a Pretoria school has drawn sharp focus on underlying racism and alleged abuse in some schools.
We want relevant answers from the MEC. You must fire the principal.
Here too, similar sentiments of underlying racism.
It just made me feel like I was not worthy enough of an education because of the type of hairstyle that I had. Because yesterday the statement was, writing an exam is a privilege.